Hello and welcome to HITC Sport. Right, it's been a couple of years since we looked at every Premier League club's longest serving player, and a lot has changed in that time. The world was turned upside down, so much that HITC even won an award. Christ, that feels like a lifetime ago. Only thing we'd win now is a lifetime supply of fruit tea and a copy of The Sun. Ouch. Anyway, here it is, every Premier League club's current longest serving player. Let's go. And by longest serving, I mean from the point he signed a professional contract, not some kid who's been with the club since he was 2 and spent his days in the cafeteria. Arsenal, Hector Bellerin. Now that Mesut Ozil's gone, Hector Bellerin is Arsenal's longest serving player, replacing Laurent Koscielny since the last time we did this video. Koscielny left the club in disgrace though, with a badly timed joke on social media ensuring he felt the scorn of Troops, DT and all the other Arsenal fan TV crew. Anyway, Bellerin made his Arsenal debut way back in September 2013, having signed a pro contract the year prior, where interestingly he came on as a 95th minute substitute to replace the man he now calls gaffer Mikel Arteta. Bellerin's one of the more interesting characters at Arsenal and often gets his fair share of stick, but he's probably not ours. He's happier planting trees, eating trees and spending time with trees. Well, that's become a lot more difficult now that Mustafi's left. Aston Villa, Jack Grealish. Jack Grealish is Mr. Aston Villa right now. The days of Gareth Barry banging home penalties are long gone. It's all about Jack Grealish. He's what real loyalty looks like at Villa Park, a talisman who leads the club by example and is going to win England the Euros. Or he could go the same way as Gabby Agbonlahor. Christ, that was a sad state of affairs. He's not been relevant since that time he wiped out one of the One Direction lads in a charity game. Anyway, Grealish made his Villa debut back in May 2014, back when he was just a scrawny teenager with pulled down socks and a face you just wanted to slap. Not much has changed in almost 7 years, other than the fact he's actually really good now. Brighton, Lewis Dunk. Lewis Dunk is Brighton through and through. He sleeps, eats and breathes the seagulls. Seriously, he's got seagulls bed sheets and for breakfast he covers them in milk. It's wildly unhealthy, someone check his bowels for Christ's sake. Dunk is a one club man if you ignore a loan spell at Bristol City back in 2013 and signed his pro contract with Brighton back in April 2010. He's one of the most loyal players in the Premier League today, which is a testament to just how much he loves the club, or how little interest has been in him over the years. Burnley, Kevin Long. Kevin Long must know something about Sean Dyche, as that's the only way I can explain how he's been at Burnley for so long. He's been there longer than Barnes, longer than me, Ben Mee that is, not me. Although he did say I look like Sean Dyche when I shaved my head last year, which is actually quite offensive when you compare our ages. But anyway, Kevin Long signed for Burnley in January 2010 and since then he's had 6 loan spells away from Turf Moor, whilst his highest tally of league games in a season for Burnley is a disappointing 16. Chelsea, Cesar Azpilicueta. Now that Lucas Piathon is gone and stopped clinging around the only thing that made him relevant at Stamford Bridge, Cesar Azpilicueta is the new longest serving player at the club. The Spanish defender joined the Blues in August 2012 and is actually tied with Victor Moses, who joined Chelsea on exactly the same day. But while Azpilicueta has thrived under multiple managers, Victor Moses sits in his bedroom or wherever he is on loan, staring at pictures of Antonio Conte. Crystal Palace, Joel Ward. Crystal Palace have got a lot of long-serving players. Their team's changed so little in the past 5-6 years that some of the players are starting to collect dust, or even worse, go mouldy. But Joel Ward is the longest of them all, joining Palace back in May 2012. He cost 400 grand at the time, and after more than 250 appearances for the club, I reckon they've got their money's worth. I mean, it would be a pretty sad state of affairs if they hadn't. Everton, Seamus Coleman. The Toffees got a new longer serving player last summer when Leighton Baines called it a day, and now it's a different shaggy head fullback sitting at the top of the pile. Seamus Coleman joined Everton way back in January 2009 for a minimal fee of just 60 grand. He has to go down as pound for pound the best signing Everton have probably ever made, and 12 years after his arrival, he's now the club captain and an all-round good bloke by all accounts. Fulham, Tom Cairney. While some clubs have had a player with them for more than a decade, Fulham have got a longer serving player with one of the shortest spans of time in the division. But I mean, what do you expect with the turnover players at Craven Cottage? That Anderson fella had only been there about 5 minutes and they were giving him the captain's armband. But Fulham's actual captain is Tom Cairney, and he's also the longest serving player after joining them back in June 2015. Cairney is approaching 6 years with the club and he's a valuable asset, provided they're in the Championship of course. In the Premier League he's about as useful as a left-handed screwdriver. Leeds United, Calvin Phillips. He's a local lad and a fan favourite at Ellen Road, and he's also the longest serving player, but only just. Phillips signed a pro contract with the club on July 9th 2014, meaning this summer will mark 7 years at the club. But if he delayed that deal a bit longer, he wouldn't actually be the longest serving player. That honour would go to Gaetano Berardi, who joined Leeds on July 19th 2014. Sadly though, we haven't seen Berardi at all in the Premier League, having picked up a horrible injury in July of last year. Leicester City Kasper Schmeichel. Just like Crystal Palace, Leicester have got a lot of players who've been there for bloody ages, with the Foxes keeping hold of a core of players who guided them to promotion, survival and finally the Premier League title. Wes Morgan and Jamie Vardy are Leicester veterans and legends, but neither have been at the club as long as Kasper Schmeichel. Peter's baby boy joined them back in June 2011, back when Sven-Göran Eriksson was manager. Christ, what a blast from the past that is. Kasper Schmeichel's been the club's number one ever since he arrived and is doing his best to match the lofty expectations that his pedigree dictates. Liverpool Jordan Henderson. To think, Liverpool very nearly gave up on Jordan Henderson and shipped him off to Fulham. That's what was going to happen in 2012, with Brendan Rodgers keen to bring Clint Dempsey to Anfield. Can you really see the Reds dominating European and domestic football with Clint Dempsey lifting all those trophies? I certainly can't, so thank goodness it didn't happen and Jordan Henderson stayed and fought for his place at Anfield. Now he's the captain and an absolute elite level leader, and to be honest, I don't think Clint Dempsey would have been able to do a job at centre back. Manchester City Sergio Aguero. Much to the anger of my fantasy football draft team, Sergio Aguero's had an absolutely rotten season, and that's despite replacing David Silva as the club's longest serving player. When Silva headed back to Spain, Sergio Aguero became the top of the pile, joining the club back in July 2011. I'll never forget his debut against Swansea, and that was the perfect indication of things to come. He's City's record scorer and has to go down as one of the Premier League's best ever strikers. Except for this season, where he's won me just 6 points for my draft team. Cheers Serge, you just keep staying at home and playing Ultimate Team, okay? Don't worry about me. Man United Phil Jones. From one Man United legend to another, the last longest serving player was Chris Smalling, but he's handed the honour to another Red Devils hero, none other than Mr Phil Jones. This summer will mark a decade of Phil Jones being at Old Trafford, and I bloody hope he gets a testimonial. The man deserves it, even if I can't remember the last time he was allowed to go on the pitch and pull one of those funny faces he does. It just pips David De Gea, a longer serving player, who joined the club a couple of weeks later. Newcastle United Paul Dummett. He was once told that he wasn't going to be good enough to play for Newcastle, but here we are in 2021 and his last appearance was a heroic cameo off the bench to help 9-man Newcastle hold on to victory against Southampton. He's not the most stylish of players, although those blonde tips say otherwise, but he's an out-and-out defender who gets the job done. Just don't ask him to cross a ball and make him play wing-back against the worst team in the league, that won't go down well. Sheffield United Chris Basham. Speaking of the worst team in the league, that brings us to Sheffield United's longest serving player Chris Basham. Basham is one of Sheffield United's marauding centre-backs, signing with the Blades in the summer of 2014 after a WWE tag team run with his brother came to an end. Oh wait, wrong Basham. Let's move on. Southampton James Ward-Prowse. James Ward-Prowse has been at Southampton so long that he's part of the furniture, and day after day he tries to ping that furniture into the top corner from a free kick. Ward-Prowse is a Saints hero, but my word is he a shithouse. He'd push a granny over, rob her of a quality street and condensed milk, then frame someone else for the crime if it meant getting 3 points for the Saints. It's an admirable quality I guess, but just dial it down a little bit James. Tottenham Danny Rose. If only that move to Milan had happened, then Danny Rose wouldn't have to be here. But Danny Rose is shockingly still a Spurs player and he's got the longest tenure at the club of anyone. But that will come to an end this summer, as I highly doubt Danny Rose will be getting a new deal, unless he fancies himself as the club's new receptionist. But until that deal expires, Danny Rose remains Tottenham's longest serving player, yet all he's doing is sitting at home because Jose Mourinho simply doesn't like him. West Brom Sam Field. West Brom have got the longest serving player with the shortest spell, and it's a lad who isn't even actually at the club right now. Sam Field made his debut in May 2016 and got a pro deal just months later, but now he's on loan at QPR, having mustered just 34 league appearances for the Baggies in total. West Ham Mark Noble. We'll come to the Hammers and the longest serving player in the entire Premier League. Mark Noble's been a senior player at West Ham longer than some of you have been alive, and yet you've still got a better chance of being capped for England. Noble's a one club man, and he actually made his debut for the club when he was just 17 back in 2004. Christ, what was I doing in 2004? Probably just collecting stickers, chasing Pokemon and wiping snot off my nose. Simpler days. And finally Wolves Conor Cody. As always we end with Wolves, and the skipper is their longest serving player after joining them back in the summer of 2015 when he had no aspirations of playing centre back. Now that's all he knows, and it took him all the way to the England setup. Christ, it might even take him to the Euros. Cody will likely be Wolves' longest serving player until he decides to call it a day, as I can't say I'm leaving, mainly because he is in Portuguese. God, that joke never gets old, get in. So there we have it, that's every Premier League club's current longest serving player. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. As always, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to HENDERSON Sport, and until next time we will see you around.